Hello, welcome back to the circuit. My name is Mark and this is SlotTrackRacer. In this edition I'm reviewing this car, the Pagani Huayra by Scalextric. So I've had this car now for about 8 weeks, and in all that time I haven't actually had it out of the box yet. And I've got to admit that that's because I'm not really in love with the car. So I bought it just after Christmas when I didn't really have money to be buying slot cars. But I did that dangerous thing of clicking onto eBay, searching for Scalextric and just seeing what was available. Big mistake. This car was coming up in an auction and the auction was just about to finish, and the price was about £36, which was actually quite good. But the seller had actually been quite clever. They'd listed the car as rare, and afterwards, after I bought it and I did some searching, it's not a rare car at all. You can find this all over the internet for a very similar price to what I paid for it, which turned out to be £39.90. I made a bid sort of thinking that I wouldn't actually win, but the auction finished and I was actually the highest bidder, and I think that's where the mistake started. I also feel that I was suckered in by this Golf livery. So I know some people absolutely love it and they will collect anything with the Golf livery on. But I think that's part of the problem for me. You could stick Golf on just about any old household item and somebody would buy it. And I feel a bit ashamed that that emotion kicked in for me. I just thought, oh, cheap, their car, Golf livery, I've got to own it. So when the auction finished, I paid over my money immediately, and at that point I think buyer's regret started to click in, and I was just really disappointed with the purchase. I thought, why did you do that, Mark? Why did you buy this car? And that's why when it came I never took it out of the box. But I think it's time today to put all that negativity behind me and actually get this thing open and get it tested on the track to see what it's like, because it could be the best car that I own, but I just don't know yet. So what we're going to do today, we'll take it out of the box, we'll do a full in-detail review on the car, then we're going to test it out on the track. So I'm going to hand it over to my alter ego, Mark Commentary, and he will take us through the 2-minute challenge and the pacer car pursuit. And then after that I'm going to be in a position to tell you what I really do think about this car. Before we get started, can I just give you that little reminder about subscribing to my channel. So my channel's quite new and I really do need your support to help make it grow. If today's the first day you've found me, or if you've been here before and you haven't subscribed yet, could you please click on the subscribe button right now. And there it is. This is our first look at the Pagani Huayra BC Roadster by Scalextric. So let's show you the back of the box immediately. So if we look at the details on the panel here, this is catalogue number C4335 and it's the Pagani Huayra BC Roadster and it's the Golf edition. So the front of the box tells us what features should be fitted. So it has the easy change guide blade. It has a rear magnet fitted, front and rear lights. It's highly detailed, compatible with the DPR chip and also compatible with spark plug. So where do we start? Highly detailed. I'll tell you now that this car has previously been issued by Scalextric as a super resistant car. Now super resistant cars, as you know, are aimed at a younger market. They're normally quite basic, blacked out windows, and the idea is that they're resistant to collisions, so it avoids damage if they do come into contact with another car or a barrier. So I'm really interested in what Scalextric have done to this car that warrants calling it a highly detailed car as opposed to a super resistant car. And I'm not sure if just the addition of see-through windows and a driver is going to be enough for me to consider this car to be highly detailed. So the car cost me £39.90. If you think new cars from Scalextric are retailing anywhere between £44 and £53, I do think that £39.90 does represent a bargain. But in my mind, it doesn't represent a bargain for a super resistant car. So I'm really hoping that this has been elevated to the highly detailed claim that Scalextric make about it. Before we open the box, we will say that the Huayra does have beautiful sleek lines, and the Golf livery is actually quite stunning, isn't it? I've never had a car previously in this livery, so this is the first one in my collection. Maybe I'll go on to collect many more, but I am really impressed with that Golf livery. I'm looking at the wing mirrors and I'm wondering about those, so when I do get it in the scrutineering bay, we'll have a real good look at those wing mirrors because they're looking a little bit odd to me. But I think let's move on and let's take the car out of the box. And there's the car out of the box in all its glory. It does actually feel quite glossy, which gives it that sort of toy-like appearance, which lends itself to being super resistant. So I really am worrying about this highly detailed point that I'm making. But let's put the car in the scrutineer's bay and we'll take a close look. So in real life, the Huayra is a mid-engine hypercar produced by the Italian manufacturer Pagani. It's renowned for its exquisite design, exceptional performance and meticulous craftsmanship, featuring a lightweight carbon fibre construction, a powerful twin-turbocharged Mercedes AMG V12 engine and a focus on aerodynamic efficiency, making it one of the most exclusive and desirable supercars in the world. The name Huayra is derived from the word for wind, signifying the car's aerodynamic prowess. So here's a Huayra loaded up in the scrutineering bay, and I must say it does look really nice underneath these lights. So let's start off by looking at the dimensions of this car. And while I'm looking at the dimensions, I have in mind the last car I reviewed, which was the Mercedes AMG GT3. So the wheelbase on the Huayra is 88mm, and that's much longer than the Mercedes car was. The width of the tyres, so the rear track is 64mm and the front track is 60mm, so that's quite unusual with it having wider wheels at the back. I think the Mercedes came out at 61mm for both axles. The weight is 80 grams and that's 4 grams heavier than the Mercedes. And that does actually surprise me because with this car being based on a super resistant car, I really was expecting it to be a little bit lighter, but I'm pleased that it's got those extra 4 grams. The height is 36mm, and again with the Mercedes it was 38mm. So what we're looking at here is a car that's lower, longer, wider and heavier than the Mercedes was. Now the Mercedes currently has the lap record on my track. So really when this car gets onto the tarmac, it should hold the road much better and be able to achieve a much faster lap. So here we see the front of the car. And I am drawn to those really unusual wing mirrors. So these wing mirrors do actually feature on the real car, but obviously in real life the stems of the mirrors are actually much more slender. So these, they look a little bit blocky to me. Now I'm sure that actually this must be a design compromise, because if you think if this car does get involved in any sort of collision, those wing mirrors are going to be the first thing to break, aren't they? So they've obviously had to beef up the stems a little bit to make sure that that doesn't happen. We can also get a good look at the headlights here. So there's 4 headlight glasses fitted. I'm sure that there's only 2 LEDs behind there, but when this is lit up it should look quite impressive. But I'm not sure about the front radiator grille. So if we see here, to me this looks a little bit glossy, which again it brings me back to that feeling that this car is more of a toy than a model. I'm sure that that grille would have looked better if it's been finished with a matte finish, or maybe even using a metal foil. So let's turn the car to the side and have a look at the profile of it. So just like the car in real life, it does have really attractive racing lines, doesn't it? Although that's a moot point because this car isn't actually a racing car. It's what Scalextric call a street car, or maybe you might call it a supercar. So you won't find this car in a competitive situation on a racetrack. Certainly not in any great numbers anyway. You might find owners of this car taking it to a track just to open it up to feel the speed. So while we have the car in profile, let me point out something that I don't particularly like, and that's this front indicator just there. So there's no actual moulding behind that front indicator. There's no bulge in the body, there's no glass, so it's literally just a dab of paint. And really, for a highly detailed car, a dab of paint for an indicator doesn't really cut it for me. Although, moving on to the hinge on the door, I suppose that is better detail. So they've picked out that hinge in a silver colour, and there's some fine livery detail just there by the rear wheel arch. The wheels themselves, so they're 7-spoke wheels, and behind them you can see the brake disc. They're a little bit dull for wheels. Some of the recent touring cars I've seen did have painted adornments on the wheels, and I've also seen a McLaren in this Golf livery that had orange detailing on the rims, something Scalextric could have done, and I'm sure that the owners of these real cars do, and that is to paint the brake caliper. So Scalextric maybe missed a trick in that they could have used that sort of detailing to uplift these wheels a little bit. So let's take a look at the rear of the car. And immediately we can see this very fine livery detail in there. These light clusters are a little bit unusual and a little bit of a mixed bag. So the two top lights on each side have actually just been painted on with a blob of white in the middle, and the rear light is actually a tiny red lens. It will actually only shine through that rear lens. And the two top ones, I don't know. Again, it's just painted detail, and that feels super resistant and not highly detailed. And if we turn around and have a look at this side of the car, and similar features. So we have the silver painted hinge, which is quite nice. The livery detail in there is quite fine. Difficult for me to read with my glasses. But again, this blobby indicator, just a dab of paint on the side. If I bring the car close enough forward, we should be able to see into the cockpit there to see the driver. So the driver has actually been painted, which I do like. There's no other painted cockpit detail, and that's something that Scalextric are missing a trick on. If we're painting a driver, why don't we pick out some of the dials on the dashboard or maybe the steering wheel? So I think the thing to do next is to take the body off the car, and we'll have a look inside. So the body is fixed to the chassis with 3 screws, so there was 1 at the back and 2 at the front, and it was very easy to remove. I will say that while I had the screwdriver in my hand, I went ahead and fitted my own DPR chip to save time for later. But if we look at the jumble of wires, this is typical of a Scalextric car, and something else that triggers me a little bit. So other manufacturers make some concerted efforts to tidy up that wiring, but with Scalextric's cars, we always seem to have this jumble of cables, and often that will hinder the DPR chip fitting in nicely. I just feel that they could do a little bit better with managing the cables. You can see clearly the motor. This is an inline motor with a crown and pinion gear, both in nylon. So the motor is S-Can 1800 RPM motor, and the gear ratio for the pinion and crown is 9 to 27 teeth. The gearing is all made with nylon parts. I always think that Scalextric go for the good enough option. Maybe brass bearings would be far more durable and give better performance. Similarly with the bearings, so the bearings for the rear axle are made out of nylon, and again it's just a good enough choice, isn't it, rather than a quality choice. You can see the difference in the track of the wheels there, so quite clearly the wheels on the back are wider than the wheels on the front. So if we turn the car on the front, you can see that the LED lights are mounted on this single circuit board across there. If I turn the car down to the back, you'll see that the rear LED lights are on 2 separate circuit boards, so that's you can just see there, and there's one over there. So very easy to separate the car, and lots of space inside the chassis for the DPR chip. But the grumble for me is the nylon drivetrain, the nylon bearings, and the jumble of cables that Scalextric have left inside there. Let's have a look at the body shell while we've got the top off. So you can see that it's a half cockpit. You can see the driver's arms there, but he doesn't have any legs. And then you can see at the front and the back, the body shell has been painted in a darker colour. And this is for light leakage. So with LED lights, you'll often find that you can see them through the wings of the car. But if the car has darker paint applied to those parts of the body, it does limit the amount of light that leaks through the edges. This is an interesting feature. These side skirts here, they aren't actually part of the moulding. What they have done is to fit them as separate parts. So if you see there are 3 legs that are glued to the side of the body that hold that side skirt in position. The exhaust pipes are interesting in that they are a little extra part that's fitted to the pillar of the screw hole on the back. So if we move the car to this angle, you should be able to see at the front there the glass for the front headlights and that small red lens for the rear lights as well. So here's a Huayra all back together and ready to go out on a track and make its debut. Before we do that, let's ask you some questions. What did you think of the car in the scrutineering bay? Have you got misgivings the same as me about the blockiness of those wing mirrors? About the fact that it has nylon bearings fitted, as do all Scalextric's cars? Do you have thoughts about the jumble of wiring inside? Do you think Scalextric could do a better job of neatening that up? And do you think this car deserves a tag of highly detailed, or do you, like me, still think that maybe it ought to be super resistant? I'd be really interested in your thoughts, so do please put them in the comments.
And here we are on the circuit for the track test of the Pagani Huayra. My name is Mark Commentary and I'm going to be describing action to you. Let's have a look what happened in round 8. So that featured the Audi TT, who only managed 17 laps in a disappointing 6.599 seconds. And the top of the leaderboard there is the Mercedes AMG. So the lights are on and we are racing. Off we go for the Pagani Huayra. And it's coming round for its first lap into the home straight, and that's a 6.665, a nice steady start. Coming round for lap 2, and that's 5.707, that's fraction on the outside, the Mercedes AMG time. But lap 3's beaten it already, 5.687, that's a really fast lap. And another fast lap, that's 5.638, that's 2 new lap records. Lap 5 is 5.646. For lap 6, that's 5.728. Here comes lap 7 into the home straight. 5.609, and that's the 3rd new lap record set on this run. Lap 8 is 5.736. Lap 9, 5.687, coming round for lap 10. It finishes on 5.735, these are really good times by the Huayra, consistent times. 5.701, such a fast car. And that's another new lap record, 5.535, that's a 4th lap record beaten. That was lap 13, 5.543. Lap 14 finishes on 5.548. Lap 15, 5.567. Lap 16, 5.699. Coming out for lap 17. And that's 5.495. That's incredible. That's a new another lap record. Lap 18 is 5.503. Lap 19, 5.698. So we're going for the highest number of laps now, 5.578. Would it complete 21? It's just incredible! 5.573, but that's 21 laps completed, and the fastest lap time on that run is 5.495. So we're going to have a look at the leaderboard now, and here we are, the Pagani Huayra straight in at the top there, 21 laps completed, fastest lap time of 5.495. And what a performance that was. But now it's straight over to the pacer car pursuit, and we have Andy Rouse on pole position in the Ford Mondeo, Matt Neal in the BMW in second, and the Huayra's third on the grid, driven by Mark Rossi. And the lights are off and we're racing, and we're coming out for the first lap, and Rossi's gone through into second. Rossi's immediately gone through, but Matt Neal's fighting back. Matt Neal's fighting back, but Rossi's held on, he's in second now. And he's challenging Andy Rouse for the lead. He's gone through into first position. And Andy Rouse come back. Andy Rouse is challenging, but Rossi's held on again. Rossi's held on, and now he's got clear daylight between him and the Ford Mondeo. And this is an incredible performance. Rossi had a long lead there over Andy Rouse in the Ford Mondeo, and this is an incredible performance by the Pagani Huayra. And it looks like he might even be able to lap the BMW, and he does easily. The BMW is lapped. Rossi's in first place. The Mondeo of Andy Rouse is in second, and Matt Neal is in third in the BMW, but he has been lapped already. And there it is! There's the checkered flag, and Rossi's brought it home in the Pagani Huayra. Rossi was first. Andy Rouse in the Ford Mondeo was second, and Matt Neal in the BMW was third, but he only completed 9 laps because he was lapped. And here's the leaderboard. That was an incredible performance there by the Pagani Huayra that marks this car out as something special with excellent performance. Let's see if we have some replays lined up for you. So here we go. This is on the first lap. Rossi's gone through into second position here. Matt Neal is challenging, and he nearly comes through on the outside. Let's see it from another angle. Rossi there in second place. Matt Neal coming back at him, and he nearly gets it as it comes round. He's on the inside there, and he nearly gets it, but Rossi holds on. And this is what happened on the second lap. This was Rossi going through into first, overtaking Andy Rouse. Let's look at it from another angle. Andy Rouse has a lead on that bend, but Rossi comes through and he puts lots of distance between the two cars. And here he is in the third lap where he consolidates that lead. Andy Rouse has come back at him there, but Rossi in the Pagani Huayra comes round again, and this time he really opens up daylight, and that really was the story of the race.
Wow, what a performance. I'm absolutely blown away by this car. So in the 2-minute challenge, it's set a new lap record on my circuit of 5.495 seconds, and that's 0.02 of a second faster than the Mercedes. And it managed to complete 21 laps, which is 2 whole laps more than the Mercedes. So consistently, lap for lap, this car was faster on every single one. And even in the pacer car pursuit, it absolutely made mincemeat of the monster Mondeo and the beastly BMW. So I've been used to recently just managing to pip those two cars on the last lap. But this car managed to get ahead on lap 2 and stay ahead throughout the entire race. So it really is a good performer. I'm wondering if that is all down to the strength of the magnet that's fitted, or the fact that it does have wider wheels on the back than the front. It makes it more like an F1 car than a saloon car, particularly with it being so low. But I think it's time now to actually give it some scores. So for detail, I've given this car 3.5 stars. And the things that I take issue with is really those front indicators, which are just blobs of orange paint, and the thickness of the stems on the wing mirrors, which are actually quite unrealistic. I was pleased that the driver had been painted, but disappointed that there was no other cockpit detail that had been picked out with paint. I feel that Scalextric are missing a trick by not painting up the cockpit. Performance, well, in terms of getting the record lap time and having such a successful pacer car pursuit race, I really can't fault the performance. However, what I did notice was as the car was going down the circuit, there was a lot of chatter off the front guide blade. I wasn't sure why that was. It's a standard guide blade, so there's no reason why it should hit the bottom of the slot. But I don't know, it just felt really rattly, and although it's crazy, you could almost feel it in the hand controller. So performance, I'm marking it down a little bit and I'm giving it 3.5 stars. The mechanism, again, so I've got to take issue with the fact that we've got nylon gearing parts fitted. It's never going to change for Scalextric. That's what they always do, but I do feel that it's just good enough parts and not quality parts. So for quality, I think to call this car a highly detailed car is a misnomer really, and for that reason I'm going to mark it down on quality. I didn't think it was much better than a super resistant car, so I'm just going to give the mark of 3.5 stars. And the same for value really. I paid £39.90 and that is a bargain price for a new car, but it wouldn't be a bargain if this was a super resistant car. In reality, that's what I think this is. I don't think this is a highly detailed car. So I think that basically I just paid a fair price for a fair car, and I'm going to give it value 3.5 stars. So all told, that adds up to 68 points out of 100. So I've only done 2 formal reviews so far, but this car is in a definite second place with some gap to the first placed Mercedes AMG. Do you know, at the end of the day, I still don't feel that I love this car. But what do you think? Do you think I'm being harsh on it? Do you actually like it? Or would you like one in your collection? I mean, let me know please, put something in the comments. So that's the end of another edition of SlotTrackRacer. I do hope that you've enjoyed it. If you have, then please do give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. So if I don't see you through next week, I'll see you around the circuit. So bye bye.